Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome to the first vlog of this channel. Okay, so just a brief history about me before we get more into this video. My name is Chet Carson and I've been training hand balancing for the last 3 years or 3 and a bit years. I started training these handstands properly in 2016. As you can tell from this video, my balancing point was all over the place. My hips were shaking, my hands were shaking, and I had no idea what I was doing. Now for the first vlog, I'm going to be talking about my training journey towards my one-arm handstand. The thing is, I've been practicing it for the last 2 to 3 months, but I've just been goofing around and not really taking my training so seriously. However, just recently I was talking to someone who's an expert in hand balancing and has been doing it for the last 7 to 8 years. And he guided me on what I need to be focusing my one-arm handstand training on. So I'm going to be structuring my one-arm handstand training on 3 main exercises. Number 1, I'm going to be focusing on the tuck handstand with the chin tucked. So I'm looking at the ceiling. Number 2, I'm going to be working on flagging. And number 3, I'm actually going to be working towards practicing the one-arm handstand lean. So using these 3 exercises, I should be able to build up my one-arm handstand. And then later on down the line, I'll chop and change a few of them, maybe add a few progressions here and there, and just see where the handstand training takes me. Now, just as a small little excuse, I'm not going to be working on my left hand. I've actually injured it. Just this past weekend, I was teaching a workshop, or I was actually helping out a friend with the workshop, and I tweaked it again, trying to act cool. So yeah, the good thing is my left side was my stronger side, and I was kind of neglecting my right side. So now I'm having to force myself to train my right side. So I guess that should work in my favor eventually. Now this vlogging series won't just be about handstands. I'll also be focusing on other aspects of training too. I'll be showing you a session that I followed up with, which was a back day. I was training deadlifts, I was doing some bent over rows and a few other conditioning tools to help me stay at balance with my body. So with all the excuses out of the way, let's get to the gym. So we're in the gym. And the first thing I would highly recommend you do is you stretch off your wrists before you start training your handstands. Especially if you're a beginner and you have no prior experience to loading your wrists up with your weight. You'll be surprised how many people have very tight wrists. It's one of the main joints that gets neglected when it comes to stretching the whole body out. Secondly, we're just moving on to some basic lat stretches. Now, when it comes to shoulder extension in the handstand, a lot of people generally go into a banana because of the lack of flexibility in their lats. You have to have almost hypermobility in the lats for you to get that straightness. And I would highly recommend you work on lat stretches at the start of your routine. Also, I'll be going into more detail with the stretches that I'm using in a future video. Okay, so the first drill we're going to be covering is the tuck handstand with the chin tucked. Now the reason why I'm looking up at the ceiling is because we're basically trying to change the system that I'm using to balance the handstand with. So we're going from a visual system where we're using the ground as a way to focus our attention on, and then we're switching over to proprioception where I'm looking up at the ceiling. So now we're relying on how the balancing point feels on our fingers. So next we're moving on to performing the handstand leans. Now this is the core part of the one-arm handstand training. So I'm trying to make sure my left hip is on top of my right shoulder so that I'm actually stacking up my body again, just like I'm doing with my normal handstand training. I've got to make sure I'm not leaning too much and I'm keeping the balancing point in the center of my palm. So I'm just picking it up here, and as you can tell, I failed a few times before I finally felt like I was balancing on one side, and even then it was only for a couple of seconds. And we're just going to finish off the one-arm handstand session with some flagging drills. Now I tend to perform 3 sets of 4 to 5 reps on each side
just to make sure that I'm working on the flexibility and strength part of the flags. The other thing is I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting as close to the ground as possible with the toes, and I'm controlling the movement through my obliques and my lats. So for the weighted session, we're going to start off performing some corrected deadlifts. Now the difference between a corrected deadlift and a conventional deadlift is largely down to the positioning of the chin. With the corrected deadlift method, we're performing the movement with our chin tucked. That way we're maintaining a neutral spine. We're also using our traps to support the weight of the bar, and we're making sure that the elbows are locked out. Now for anyone that's had issues with their lower back, performing the deadlift with the corrective method is a great way of strengthening the posterior chain. So the second drill we're moving on to is the bent over row. Now I'm using the same form as I used with the corrected deadlift. Again, I'm trying to maintain that neutral spine, chin tucked, and I'm also using an underarm grip or a supinated grip just so that I can engage the lats more, and the knees are slightly bent, allowing me to engage the hamstrings and alleviate the pressure through the lower back. I can't really remember what the actual name of this variation of the bent over row is, so if you know what the name was, please do leave it down in the comment section below. And finally, before we move on to some conditioning drills, I finished off the back session with performing some Romanian deadlifts. Now I know that this isn't strictly a back exercise, but I feel as though I need a second session in the week that I'm targeting my hamstrings. I'm using the same form that I used for the corrected deadlift and the bent over row. So I'm loading the hamstrings as much as I can, alleviating the pressure through the lower back, and I'm trying to go as low as possible so I'm getting that full stretch in my hamstrings, and I'm supporting the entire weight through my scapular blades. And to just finish off the conditioning drills, I worked on some sissy squats and some hanging leg raises. So for the sissy squat, you just want to make sure that your hips are tucked underneath, so you're performing a posterior pelvic tilt, and you're trying to maintain a good straight line between your thighs and your hips, so your angle isn't closing as you're driving those knees down. Stop wherever you feel like you can maintain the balance. And for the hanging leg raises, I'm just trying to make sure my knees are fully locked out. I'm not using any of the muscles around my legs to perform the actual leg raise. That way I'm fully training the compression aspect of the hanging leg raise. So this will translate into other aspects of your handstand training. For example, the press to handstand and the shoulder press to handstand.
Thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Now if you did like it, then hit that like button, and also leave a comment down below in the comment section. Tell me what you liked about this video, tell me what you didn't like about this video. Hit that subscribe button and support this channel. I think it's on this side. I'll see you later.